Hey, IT friends, how's it going? It's Friday. That means it is Friendship Friday. And I have kind of a spicy Friendship Friday today. Spicy in the sense that it's going to be probably some stuff that a few people don't want to hear, but I think it's important because it will help you reflect inwards, build yourself, and move that IT career forward, which is hopefully the inspiration that you're getting out of Friendship Friday to begin with. I see a lot of posts on a lot of the Reddits that I'm on, RMSP for sure, but also on our sysadmin, a bunch of our IT careers, our MSP jobs, and the associated Discord, some of which have tens of thousands of members in them. So if you're looking for staff, go to where your staff prospects are. Weird, same advice you give in sales and marketing. Funny how that works. I see quite a few posts that basically frame up to I am working for an MSP and some element of my workplace is bad or negative or toxic. And we could make a whole series of videos on that. But I wanna narrow it down to a very specific kind of post I sometimes see, which is basically that post where an employee is saying, I want to get out of my bad MSP, but I can't find another job. I like these posts. Well, I don't like that the person's in this position, but I like these posts because, it tells a complete story. There's a tiny little miniature story being told. But I do want to talk a little bit practically about that situation. What I think if you're one of those employees, what you need to think about a little bit as you move forward, because there's a lesson you need to learn. There are absolutely toxic work environments. I am not doubting that. And there are plenty of toxic MSPs. I think anytime you have a situation where you have a small business that was started by an entrepreneur with a vision and drive and a little bit of ego to get them there, and they've kind of pulled that company along by the sheer weight of their own efforts, which is exactly why all the companies that you work for exist. Someone had to do that at some point. My employee friends, someone had to. At one point, your owner had to bust their butt to get the company to the point where they could hire you. And I think that's important to remember. Some people don't turn that off, or some owners carry the negative aspects of that energy with them. I get that. And I'm not disagreeing with you. There are small businesses and there are MSPs that just have owners that aren't pleasant to work for, that don't have a great structure set up, that do not have good conditions, that whatever. I think if we take it at face value that not every company and every individual job is a fit for every individual person, just like not all of us are always going to be friends with each other. I think that's a fair statement. So you've identified that. You've identified that where you are isn't a fit for you and you are looking outward, but yet you are not finding other jobs. Why is that? Why are you not finding other jobs? The answer, and this is the spicy part, is probably you. And I know that's not what you want to hear on Friendship Friday. You want it to be something else, but it's probably you. You're probably the reason you're not finding other jobs. Because there's so many reasons that statement is probably accurate. And they're not all necessarily, in fact, most of them probably aren't negative at all. The minute you can have that moment of self-awareness and recognize that you are probably the reason you're not finding a job, not because there aren't jobs and not because all the jobs you can find are toxic, that's a really important moment in your career, because you can recognize at that point basically the rules of the game you're playing, and if you're willing to follow them. And when you have that realization in any role, you can really unlock your true potential to basically get to any level of success that you want to get to in your chosen profession. But if you never have that realization, it's a career limiter. And well, you're seeing that now in the fact that you're unable to find another role. So I'm going to assume that if you're in the working world, you are probably legally an adult. And given that you are legally an adult, just based on time served on Earth, there's a non-zero chance that you have had some sort of intimate relationship with another human, either a close friend, perhaps a romantic partner, maybe somebody that you've been gaming on, Xbox Live since the early days with, whatever. There's at least some human somewhere on this planet that you have made a close connection with. And there's a good chance that at some point, you made a connection with a human, and then later on into that relationship realized that for whatever reason, that was the wrong human to connect with, right? We've all been there. And the example I'll use here is everybody here has probably at some point either had directly or known somebody that had a boyfriend or a girlfriend that they thought was the best thing ever when they first started dating. And then some point into the relationship realized they can't stand each other. Terrible relationship, was hurt horribly, yada, yada. What does every human in the history of ever do in that situation? Well, after we get over the first, week or two of being angry that we were treated that way, we start looking for another relationship because there's a void that we want to fill. But we go into that next relationship with 100% of basically the baggage from the last relationship actively in our hands. We're taking the ways that we were wronged and projecting them onto everyone we meet. We're taking the things that we liked and projecting them onto everyone we meet. And so literally, what do we call that first person? We call it a rebound, because it is literally something that you are bouncing off of until you recognize what you actually need to be looking for. Everybody's aware, everybody understands that reference. And I use that reference because that's what you're doing with the job right now. That's what's happening to you right now. Wherever you are, my IT friend, miserable in your job, you are in a rebound phase. You feel you have been hurt and harmed by a business you have a relationship with. There are behaviors there that you feel are toxic and that you know you don't want in your next job. And there are some things you like or you found that you want in your next job by experiencing them in this job. So you also have positives, and you are projecting all of that when you go out and interview. You may not realize you're projecting it, but you are projecting it. You are projecting it when you interview. You are projecting it when you're writing your resume. You project it when you are looking at the job ads themselves and deciding which ones to post a response to. You are projecting those things when you maybe do get a job offer and say no. All of that is you projecting your past baggage, and you have to be aware of that. And you need to be able to step outside of that. Here's a great example. How many of you have worked at a job where for some reason the in-office culture was kind of toxic? Culture can absolutely change. Places are always toxic forever, but everybody's been somewhere at some point where the in-office culture was not great. So what's an easy thing to do? Well, my next job, I want to work remote. Okay, well, you just cut your total prospects down by, to like 30% of the market. So if your goal is getting a new job, you just cut out about 70% of the jobs. And then you're going to be going into every interview with a skewed perspective of, I have to avoid a toxic work environment. But yet, how do you know what a non-toxic work environment is? You know how you want to be treated, but do you actually scientifically understand exactly what elements to look for that will empirically give you the clarity that an environment is objectively toxic or not? No, of course not. No one knows that. But you're trying to do that. And so you're going into all of these job-seeking interactions with this potential mindset of must avoid toxicity based on criteria that, quite frankly, you've made up based on one experience. The people who you're interviewing and working with, they can pick up on that energy. They don't know what happened to you. They don't know why. And more importantly, even if you told them, that's scary. Who's met somebody that recently broke up with a significant other and then does have the wherewithal to tell you all the ways that they were harmed and what they do or don't want in their next relationship? What's the universal vibe all of us have? It's like, oh, you're doing that. I think everybody has a right to be happy doing what they do. And I think everybody has the ability to have agency in arriving at that. So if you are unhappy with what you are currently doing and where you're doing it and who you're doing it with, I don't blame you for wanting to find a version of your passion where you are happy. You should be able to do that. And I want you to have the tools to be successful. So to all of those folks that are unhappy where they are looking for a new role and just can't seem to find anything, it's not because the rest of the industry sucks. We learn in engineering very early on that when you're working through a problem, you want to list all the variables. You want to list every single variable you need to solve that problem. And then you go in and all the variables that you already know what they are, you list those out. And then all the variables that you don't, you put a question mark there. And that's part of your job as you work through that problem, is to figure out, by working through this problem, can I populate more of these variables? Because in engineering, everything's always an equation, and I need to know the variables I'm solving for. This is the same thing, my friends. The variables are not just what you want in the next job. The biggest variable is you. And you have to understand you. And you have to understand how you're presenting yourself, how you're communicating, what value statement you're making to that next employer, how much baggage you are unintentionally marching in their literal or virtual front door with as you slam all that baggage down on the table in your job interview. I'll leave you with a parting thought. So I interview a lot of people. And in my previous roles, I've interviewed even more people. Just a lot of interviews. I've been through a lot of training on how to interview. I've got lots of interview questions that I've learned. And we all know that, like, there's those common interview questions that are trying to get you to talk about mistakes you've made, who was your worst boss, how did you overcome a problem. What I want to challenge all of you who are not happy with your current job, pretend you were interviewing yourself for a minute, but only ask yourself positive questions. I want you to ask yourself, what was the best thing that your boss did at your last MSP? I know you don't like your boss. I know that's why you want to leave. But what was the best thing they did? Because there was something. What was your favorite element of them being your boss? What was your favorite element of waking up in the morning and going to that job? Even if you hated the job, there was something. There was something you did like. What was the favorite thing you accomplished while you were there? What were you best at while you were there? On the worst day you can remember at that job, when you had the most visceral sense that I should quit right now, what was the one thing at the end of the day when you went home that you felt slightly good about? I want you to think about that. We already know you're unhappy and you want to leave. That's a given. That variable is checked off. Put that to the side. Put that baggage to the side. What were the handful of tiny little good things? They weren't good enough to keep you there, but the things that were good, what were those? Pull those out. Talk about those. Focus on those. That's what you want to bring to your next employer. That's what you want to show on your resume. That's how you want to represent yourself. Because ultimately, there were some things you were functionally good at. There were things that you didn't hate. There were things that were okay. There just weren't enough of them. You need to be able to identify what you liked. What you liked is more important than what you didn't like. And finding a new job where you're focusing on the things that make you happy is more important than focusing on the things that made you upset. Because every job is going to have a day where it makes you upset. Every boss is going to have a day when they are not the boss you wanted that day. And here's the thing, if you flip it around, every employee has a day or week or a month where they suck, and I don't want them here either. Yeah, weird how that works, right? It's hard to forget that coin flips both ways. But yet you still work for me, right? And you still work for your last boss because there was also good there. You got to hang on to that good part. You got to focus on those positives parts, and you need to put that together. That is your persona. That is what you are seeking. That is what you are crafting. That is the theatrical play you are giving in the interview. I don't mean it's all sunshine and roses, and I'm not saying you can't express that there are things that frustrated you in your last role. That's normal. It's normal. Like, it's okay to have a few things like that you want to be specific with, but you need to remember the minute you do that, you're limiting your options. Remember what your goal was, just to find a new job. You've got this. I believe in you. Keep applying. Focus on the good parts. Focus on the positives. Focus on the things that you liked. Go find more of what you liked. You will always find things you don't like. Find the company that has the most of the things you did like in the greatest quantity that is echoed throughout the entire process. That's the job. That's the job, my friends. And then you got to work for it. If you're expecting that you're going to join a company and they're going to treat you like the most important person in the company, you're not. You're not. You're an employee. I love my employees. I want all my employees to be successful. Individually, none of them are individually the single most important element of the company. No one is. None of us are. That's not how the world works. You cannot always be in protagonist mode, especially when you're shopping for a new job. You've got this. Have a great Friday, everybody. You deserve to be in a job that you enjoy, that fits your goals, that you're passionate about.